Caitlyn Clark could be breaking another record, this time with an endorsement deal. The Associated Press says Clark will soon be signing an 8-year, $28 million contract with Nike.
Caitlyn Clark has just landed a jaw-dropping $25 million Nike contract, stunning the league and freezing Sophie Cunningham in disbelief. Was this blockbuster deal fueled by her record-shattering stats, a behind-the-scenes marketing gamble, or Nike's audacious vision to crown its next global icon? Cunningham's reaction, equal parts shock, awe, and envy, echoes across locker rooms and timelines. The entire basketball world is shaken. But what explosive truth lies beneath this historic signing? Stay with us. Caitlyn Clark's $25 million shockwave. Caitlyn Clark didn't just sign a contract, she sent shockwaves through the entire sports world. In only the first few months of her rookie WNBA season, she inked a record-shattering $25 million deal with Nike, a number that towered over every sneaker contract in league history and even eclipsed the earnings of some seasoned NBA veterans. For most athletes, this kind of milestone would have been the headline of a lifetime, the pinnacle of personal success. But for Caitlyn, it was never just about the money, the fame, or even the promise of launching her very own signature shoe line, a first in the WNBA. She wanted more than history. She wanted to change the conversation, and that's exactly what she did. The surprise wasn't the size of the deal. The real shock came from what Caitlyn chose to do in the days that followed. Instead of basking in the glory of her personal achievement, she turned the spotlight in a completely unexpected direction. Days after the announcement, she invited teammate Sophie Cunningham to what seemed like a low-key Nike event in Indianapolis. Sophie walked in, assuming it was nothing more than a brand celebration, maybe a casual photo shoot, perhaps a press opportunity. She had no idea she was about to be part of one of the most unforgettable moments the WNBA had ever seen. The room fell silent as the lights dimmed. A giant screen flickered to life, playing a short film that chronicled Caitlyn's journey. From her high school days in Iowa, where packed gyms held their breath each time she touched the ball, to the pressure-filled arenas of the WNBA, the film captured not just her rise but the struggles that tried to break her. The criticism, the mental battles, the doubts that echoed louder than cheers, all of it lay bare. Yet alongside the adversity came her defining moments, buzzer-beating shots that electrified crowds, record-breaking audiences who turned out just to see her play, and the loyal circle that stood by her when the noise outside grew deafening. The footage ended, but the energy in the room was electric. Then Nike representatives stepped forward with a gesture that stunned even the most seasoned insiders. They presented Caitlyn with a gold-stitched jersey, an honor typically reserved for legends, not rookies. The expectation was clear. Caitlyn would step forward, accept her crown, and make this moment hers. But Caitlyn Clark did something no one saw coming. She turned to Sophie Cunningham. Her voice was steady, her words deliberate. "This isn't just for me," she said. "This is for every woman who shows up, fights hard, and protects her team." In that moment, the contract, the money, even the promise of the next great Nike sneaker seemed secondary. What Caitlyn had done was bigger. She redefined loyalty, shifted the meaning of success, and reminded everyone in that room and beyond that true power in sports doesn't come from headlines, but from how you choose to use them. So here's the question. If Caitlyn Clark can redefine loyalty and shift what success truly means, could this moment signal a deeper transformation for the entire sport itself? Keep watching. The moment that redefined loyalty. It wasn't just a stirring speech. Caitlyn Clark made sure her actions carried the same weight as her words. Moments after dedicating her gold-stitched jersey to the women who fight for their teams, the atmosphere shifted again. A Nike representative stepped forward, carrying a sleek black box. The room held its breath. When the lid was lifted, inside sat a pair of custom player edition sneakers designed in the Indiana Fever colors. On the heel, in bold stitching, were 3 unmistakable words: no backing down. The sneakers alone would have been enough to leave Sophie Cunningham speechless. They symbolized recognition, validation, and the kind of spotlight most role players in the league rarely receive. But then came the twist that no one had anticipated. Beneath the shoes lay a folded contract, not a gift from Nike, but a deal Caitlyn herself had brokered. Using her influence during negotiations for her own $25 million endorsement, she had carved out space for Sophie to secure her own place under the Nike umbrella. This was not the typical self-centered maneuver that often defines professional sports. This was something else entirely. In a league where every deal, every headline, and every ounce of recognition is fiercely contested, Caitlyn's decision stood apart. It was more than generosity. It was a deliberate rewriting of the rules. She refused to hoard the benefits of her newfound stardom. Instead, she redirected the power towards someone who had stood with her when the noise was loudest and the pressure unrelenting. For Sophie, the gesture carried a weight words could hardly capture. She had entered the room expecting a celebration of Caitlyn's triumph. She left, realizing she was now part of history herself. The culture of competition, long built on separation and rivalry, had been momentarily replaced by something deeper: solidarity. Caitlyn Clark had reminded the world that true strength isn't just in breaking records or signing historic contracts. It is in remembering those who walked beside you when the lights were blinding and the critics unrelenting. In an era where superstardom often demands a solo spotlight, Caitlyn chose to share hers deliberately, unapologetically, and with a quiet defiance that spoke louder than any press release. And that left one haunting question lingering over the stunned crowd. Was this move pure strategy, heartfelt sentiment, or the beginning of something far more profound that no one has yet uncovered? Stay tuned. Why Sophie mattered. When Caitlyn Clark entered the WNBA, she wasn't stepping onto a red carpet. She was walking straight into a storm. The spotlight was blinding, cameras stalked her every move, and the critics circled like predators waiting for her first misstep. On the court, the welcome was even harsher. Veterans wasted no time testing her toughness. Angel Reese and Dijonai Carrington seemed to make it their mission to challenge her, sometimes with cutting words, other times with bruising contact that bordered on hostile. The pressure was unrelenting, the expectations towering, and every mistake magnified under a microscope. Yet in the middle of that chaos, one figure quietly emerged as her protector: Sophie Cunningham. She didn't just share the court with Caitlyn, she fought for her. Whenever the physical play escalated, Sophie was there, stepping between Clark and her challengers. She absorbed fouls that might have sidelined the rookie star, sending a message to the league that if the officials weren't going to protect Caitlyn, she would. Sophie never crossed into reckless aggression, but her presence was loud enough to echo from the baseline to the nosebleeds. In many ways, she became Clark's shield, the steady force that allowed Caitlyn to stay locked on the basket and deliver the performances that drew record-breaking crowds. Clark never forgot that, and when her moment of glory arrived, she refused to let it be just about herself. Nike had just handed her a breathtaking gold-stitched jersey, a custom piece worthy of Hall of Fame display. The crowd expected her to wear it proudly, smile for the cameras, and let the spotlight crown her. Instead, she paused. Holding the jersey in her hands, she turned to Sophie. Her words carried the weight of conviction. "This isn't just for me. This is for every woman who shows up, fights hard, and protects her team." The room erupted, but Caitlyn wasn't finished. From a display case, she pulled out a sleek box. Inside were a pair of custom Sophie Cunningham Player Edition sneakers, designed in Indiana Fever colors. Gasps filled the room. For Sophie, the sneakers alone would have been a career-defining moment, a visible acknowledgement that her sacrifices had been noticed. But then came the shock that silenced everyone. Beneath the sneakers lay a contract. Not a ceremonial gesture, but a real Nike deal. Caitlyn had used her own endorsement negotiations, her hard-earned leverage from that staggering $25 million contract, to secure Sophie's place under the Nike umbrella. It was not a casual shout-out, not a token cosign. It was a deliberate business move, the kind that rewrote what loyalty and leadership could look like in professional sports. In a league where every endorsement, every headline, every second of screen time is fiercely contested, Caitlyn Clark chose to share her power. It wasn't marketing, it was personal. It was a statement that solidarity could matter more than rivalry, and that true leadership isn't about standing alone in the spotlight. It's about deciding who you pull into it with you. So what happens when solidarity overshadows rivalry, and leadership is measured not by the spotlight you claim, but by who you choose to share it with? Stay glued. Sophie's unforgettable shock. Sophie Cunningham didn't shed rehearsed tears that day. What fell from her eyes was real, raw emotion carved out of years of sacrifice, finally seen in the brightest of lights. Her reaction wasn't staged for headlines or cameras. It was the kind of moment that leaves a player frozen, unable to process the weight of recognition they never expected. Sophie wasn't chasing acknowledgement, yet Caitlyn Clark made certain she received it, and in doing so, reshaped how loyalty could look in professional basketball. The obvious question followed immediately. Why Sophie? Why would a rookie who had just secured a groundbreaking $25 million Nike contract, one that placed her among the most valuable athletes in the sport, redirect her first major endorsement spotlight toward a teammate? The answer lay in a bond forged not in press releases, but in collisions, fouls, and unspoken acts of defense. From the opening weeks of Clark's WNBA journey, Sophie had stepped into a role no one assigned her, but everyone could see. When the league's physicality turned punishing, she was the first body between Clark and the storm. She leaned into contact, confronted opponents, and sent silent but unmistakable warnings. If officials failed to intervene, she would. In tense games, her shadow followed Caitlyn's every step, less like a teammate and more like an unflinching guardian. And yet, Sophie never promoted her role. She didn't broadcast her protection online, didn't seek applause from the stands, and never once demanded credit. But Caitlyn noticed. She saw the sacrifices, the hidden confrontations, the times Sophie took the blow so she could keep her focus on the rim. And when the stage grew larger than ever at Nike's Indianapolis event, Caitlyn decided the quiet battles would no longer go unseen. In front of executives, reporters, and teammates, Caitlyn voiced what others had missed. People talk about the plays I make, but Sophie makes the plays no one sees. Then the reveal stunned everyone in attendance. From the display case came a custom pair of Sophie Cunningham sneakers, colored in Indiana fever tones and stitched with the unshakable mantra, "No backing down." But the real shock wasn't in the footwear. Inside the box lay a binding contract. Not a token gesture, not a ceremonial slip of paper, an official Nike deal. Caitlyn had used her own negotiations to secure Sophie's entry into the brand's family. Never before in WNBA history had a rookie leveraged her own multi-million-dollar agreement to pull another player into the spotlight. The impact was immediate. Inside the Fever locker room, younger teammates saw a living example of what loyalty could mean. Veterans began rethinking the very definition of influence in sports. Even rival players admitted privately that this was the kind of recognition most never receive in their entire careers. What Caitlyn had done was bigger than sneakers, contracts, or even one teammate's career. She had turned personal power into collective strength, proving that in a league where every inch of attention is contested, the truest form of influence is measured not by what you take, but by what you choose to give. And what if Nike's boldest gamble wasn't about profits or headlines, but about betting on the unseen power of generosity? Could this shift the entire balance of influence in sports? You won't want to miss this part. The power behind Nike's gamble. $25 million is a staggering figure, But the true story lies in what Caitlyn Clark chose to do with it. Money can buy exposure, commercials, and merchandise, but it cannot buy the kind of vision she carried into the negotiation room. From her very first day in the WNBA, Clark has done more than score points. She has shifted the atmosphere of an entire league. Attendance is surging, rivalries are igniting, and arenas that once sat half full now echo with sellout crowds. She has become the face of a sport long fighting for its place on the national stage, and her deal with Nike has confirmed what fans already knew. Caitlyn Clark represents more than a highlight reel. Nike didn't look at her and see just another athlete capable of draining deep threes from improbable distances. They saw something bigger, a cultural reset disguised as a rookie in an Indiana Fever jersey. At a time when professional sports are crowded with personalities, politics, and carefully polished PR smiles, Clark brought something refreshingly rare: authenticity. She didn't chase this deal to pad her own legacy. She chased it to make space for others. The turning point came when Clark walked into her Nike negotiations and drew a line no rookie had ever dared before. She told the billion-dollar brand she would sign only if her teammate Sophie Cunningham was included. It was a bold, calculated demand, an audacious reminder that her power wasn't for sale unless it could be shared. Nike could have balked, but instead, they leaned in. They understood instantly that what Caitlyn was offering wasn't a burden. It was brilliance. Loyalty sells. Sisterhood sells. And a genuine connection is priceless in a marketplace oversaturated with slogans. From that moment forward, this contract was no longer a personal payday. It became a movement. Nike's creative division wasted no time. They began shaping a campaign around Caitlyn and Sophie, two players tied not by convenience, but by grit, trust, and an unshakable bond forged under the brightest lights. Ads, behind-the-scenes features, and merchandise weren't just about selling sneakers. They were about selling a story rooted in loyalty. And the shoes themselves? Already historic. For the first time in WNBA history, a player's sneaker line will be directly tied to a teammate's endorsement. The Sophie Cunningham edition is drenched in Indiana Fever colors. They are not simply footwear, they are a battle cry. But Caitlyn's ambition runs deeper than fashion and television spots. She is funneling this deal into something that will outlive the headlines: a mentorship initiative for girls in underfunded communities. These are young athletes with raw talent but little access, no proper courts, few coaches, often no safe spaces to even play. Clark's program will deliver gear, clinics, professional-level training, and, most importantly, personal guidance from WNBA athletes themselves. She and Sophie plan to be there in person, not just in photographs. This isn't charity designed for quick applause. It is infrastructure, carefully laid out for long-term impact. It is proof that Clark's stardom isn't about standing alone at the top, but about pulling others onto the stage with her. And that is why Nike didn't just choose her. They bet their future on her. Which leads to the next question, one burning beneath the surface. Has Caitlyn always been this way? Or do hidden chapters from her past reveal why loyalty has become the core of her rise? And as the mystery deepens, was Caitlyn Clark's unwavering loyalty forged long before the WNBA lights, hidden in untold moments that shaped her destiny? Or is this bond with Sophie Cunningham the true key to her rise? The bond that redefined a team. Caitlyn Clark's rise in the WNBA has not only been measured in sold-out crowds, record statistics, or headline-making contracts. Beneath the bright lights, her journey has revealed something deeper: the way she elevates those around her. Fans and analysts often focus on her limitless shooting range, her court vision, or her calm leadership in high-pressure moments. Yet, a quieter, equally powerful part of her story lies in the respect she shows her teammates, especially Indiana Fever's own Sophie Cunningham. One evening against the Atlanta Dream, that truth came into sharp focus. Sophie delivered a performance that pulsed with grit: 16 points, 10 rebounds, and relentless energy that shifted momentum at critical moments. It was the kind of game that could easily be overshadowed by Clark's star power. But instead of filling her feed with her own highlights, Clark turned the spotlight outward. She posted Sophie's reel, pairing it with a single word: dog. To outsiders, the phrase might feel casual, almost throwaway. But within basketball culture, it is anything but. It is the highest stamp of recognition, reserved for those who play with unshakable determination. From Clark, it wasn't just praise. It was acknowledgement, a way of saying, "I saw your fight, and it mattered." This habit of uplifting Sophie has never been confined to box scores or game nights. It's stitched into everyday interactions, often revealed through humor. When Sophie and teammate Lexi Hull shared a TikTok lounging poolside, Clark couldn't resist slipping in a playful jab, suggesting swimsuit brands should remind them that basketball comes first. It was teasing, yes, but beneath the laughter was a portrait of chemistry that extends far beyond drills and practices. And that bond flows both ways. Sophie has consistently been one of Clark's fiercest advocates since her very first professional game. When critics tried to minimize Clark's influence, Sophie didn't hesitate to call such takes absurd, her defense blunt and unwavering. That single moment went viral, not just because of what she said, but because of the conviction with which she said it. Together, they've built something larger than a partnership on the court. It's loyalty, it's trust. It's the kind of relationship that can transform not only a locker room, but the trajectory of an entire franchise. But could this unbreakable bond between Caitlyn Clark and Sophie Cunningham be the hidden force that decides the Fever's destiny, and maybe even the future of the WNBA itself? Stay connected. The unbreakable bond driving the Fever. Sophie Cunningham's defense of Caitlyn Clark wasn't about rattling off points or assists. It was about something larger: her presence, her reach, and her undeniable impact on the league as a whole. Sophie reminded everyone that Clark hasn't just filled arenas, she's transformed them. She's driven ticket sales to record highs, pulled in television audiences at levels the WNBA has never seen, and brought a new kind of spotlight that players before her had fought for, but rarely secured. Her arrival has rewritten the storylines of entire seasons, forcing broadcasters, sponsors, and fans to recognize that the league had stepped into a new era. And when Sophie said it, it didn't sound like a carefully scripted press statement. It felt like loyalty, raw and unfiltered, a teammate stepping directly into the storm to shield someone she believes in. This cycle of recognition and defense, Clark lifting Sophie after a breakout performance, and Sophie standing up for Clark when the noise grew deafening, reveals something teams often miss. Winning isn't only about strategy or skill. It's about the unseen glue, the trust that builds when players know their contributions won't go unnoticed. Talent may put points on the board, but trust wins titles. And in Indiana, that trust is being built in real time, possession by possession, comment by comment, gesture by gesture. Clark shows that instinct in ways both small and big. After games, when asked about her own shooting or passing numbers, she's just as likely to pivot and highlight a teammate's hustle play, a defensive stop, or a rebound that shifted momentum. She knows those moments rarely make it into the highlight packages, but she makes sure they're remembered. Her awareness stretches beyond the box score into the heartbeat of the team. For Sophie, who thrives on energy, leadership, and effort more than gaudy stat lines, that kind of acknowledgement carries enormous weight. She's the spark in the huddle, the voice that cuts through chaos, the one keeping the group sharp when fatigue creeps in. Clark not only notices it, she amplifies it, ensuring fans and media see it too. And Sophie answers back in the most meaningful ways. She's the first to step between Clark and an opponent when physical play crosses the line. She's quick to call out narratives that try to shrink Clark's influence or reduce her success to hype. She carries part of the burden so Clark can continue being the relentless force she is on the court. For an Indiana Fever team still searching for its steady rhythm, that bond has become a lifeline, a foundation for growth, and a reminder that the journey is bigger than any single game. What emerges isn't just the story of a rookie phenom or a seasoned teammate. It's the portrait of a partnership redefining what it means to lead in women's basketball. Fans don't only crave dazzling performances, they crave authenticity, loyalty, and heart. And in Clark and Cunningham, they see all three shining at once, a living example of how greatness is never built alone. So what do you think? Has Caitlyn Clark and Sophie Cunningham's bond become the hidden force capable of reshaping the entire WNBA? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.